Hey guys, MrPokke here, back with another video, and welcome back to a wonderful session in Pokke's Classroom. And today we are finally going to be discussing the CN Pony opinion for version 2.4's Honkai Starbucks featuring Yunli, Jiaoqiu, Huohuo, and Sparkle. So without further ado, let's get into today's content.
Subscribe!
So today's content is going to be deciding on who to put, right? Deciding who to put the pre-release analysis, particularly the creator experience server. Then I'll be going to the units with greater details, right? Regarding their kits, best builds, all that kind of stuff. So just an overall pooling opinion, right? And then this is going to be offering the CN's perspective based on the live stream event. So players should definitely still do their own due diligence. And the target audience, of course, is going to be mainly for free-to-players and low spenders. And under the assumption that we do get one unit, no idolants, and not pulling for signature litecoins, right? So with that established, first of all, we always have to go through the estimated pool income for patch per patch. In version 2.4, which is going to be lasting from the 31st of July all the way to the 10th of September, you can see this graph over here for the complete free-to-plays. First half will provide you with 53 pools, second half give you another 32 for a combined total of 85 pools. For the monthly pass holders, you're gonna get an additional every single day you get a 90 strategy, right? So it will add up to a total of 109 pools. And then for the monthly plus Battle Pass holders, it's going to be roughly 117 pools, right? So that is going to be that. Estimations, not 100% confirmed. There might be new events, there might be fresh events, different income, different strategies. So that is going to be the rough estimation. TLDR, if it's free to play, if you do not miss your 50-50, you should be able to guarantee 1 units in version 2.4. So with that being established, let's just go on to our very first unit, which is going to be Yunli, our counter DPS Yunli. Alright, she is a very surprisingly versatile DPS that can work with pretty much almost any endgame content while dealing impressive damage to group and single target. So what I mean by this is, if you guys remember Clara, I say this specifically to Clara because her kit, it really does remind me of Clara herself, which is basically the counter mechanic, and she can kind of, you know, more or less perform in almost pretty much every single endgame content, right? And if you guys are aware of, I know most of you guys are not, but in Honkai Starbucks PvP, where you basically have to use units against Memory of Chaos, Clara actually has been a consistently strong pick for PvP. She has always been able to clear Memory of Chaos in very decent clear cycles, even without the use of high quality supports such as Runmei, such as Sparkle, and all these counter. So it makes her a very versatile investment, especially for someone that wants a DPS unit that can cover multiple contents in Honkai Starbucks, right? So her skill for Yunli, not Clara, is going to be a self-heal, classic 3-turn destruction target damage, nothing too crazy, nothing to write home about. The main thing is going to be from her ultimate and the talent. So ultimate is going to cast a AoE taunt, like Tech Taunt, and then she will enter into the parry state. So Blood is basically playing secure. In this parry state, the counter from her talent, it will now deal increased damage. From the live stream, we don't know exactly what is the multipliers, but this is the only thing we know. It does deal increased damage. So what exactly is the talent? It is basically exactly the same as Clara's counter. Every time she gets hit, she is going to counter back. But if you do not cast her ultimate, then you will not get a 100% guaranteed on, right? Depending on how strong this counter multiplier is, Yunli can be a very versatile DPS, but likely, you know, it is what it is. Power creeping Clara, because at the end of the day, she is a limited unit. She is a limited DPS, and she's the exact same class, exact same element with pretty much 90% of the exact same kit. She shouldn't be performing worse than Clara, and I do expect her to be performing better than Clara. Alright, so that's gonna be that. And then for her supplementary 4-star, it's gonna be Hanya, Yukong, and Lynx. Nothing too crazy. All of them have pretty good design items, especially towards their E6. Note that Yukong, right? Yukong specifically, she works exceptionally well with Yunli if we were to take into consideration how Yukong worked with Clara, because the buff for Yukong, it lasts throughout the entire time when the enemies hit Clara. No matter how many counters Clara deal, as long as the enemy hit you, she will gain the buff for Yukong the entire time. So it is very likely that Yukong will synergize very well with Yunli, right? So that's gonna be the overall 4-star summary. So it's good. Hope that you guys can get your E6 Yukong. I mean, it's been more than a year, so hopefully you guys do get the E6 Yukong, right? So the overall verdict, if you are a new player, or you just want to build a all-round defense, just gonna step and go, it's gonna be 8 out of 10. Otherwise, it is going to be a 2 out of 10. So CM believes that Yunli's strength will ultimately depend on her multipliers and a roster, right? Because as we all know by now, DPS units in Honkai Starbucks, they are always more prone to quote-unquote power creep, right? It is what it is. But Yunli and Clara, they serve a very interesting niche where they can do quite decently well in pretty much every single endgame content. The only downside is that they are probably not going to be the absolute best units if you're thinking about like 0 cycles or like a 0 AV clears. But at the end of the day, nobody cares about those, right? Especially not the casuals, right? And this is for a casual. So if you don't care about 0 cycling, I think that overall, generally speaking, this unit can do quite well in Memory of Chaos, in Pure Fusion, and in Portal Shadows, right? So if the goal is to simply beat the game, which is to basically beat the endgame content, then Yunli will fulfill a very interesting purpose where you can save your resources, especially in the early game for new players, from building different DPS team comps. You kind of just slap on Yunli and you can run her in pretty much everyone. Classic example, if you were to have pulled for, let's just say, Imbibitor Lune, he really doesn't perform too well in Pure Fusion or Jingliu, right? And then if you were to pull for, let's just say, like Argenti, I mean, he's still not too bad. He's still not too bad in Memory C, but like he's probably not going to be performing as well. So it's like Yunli, she will most likely be able to perform. It really depends on how strong her multipliers are. We do not know her multipliers yet, but depending on how strong this ultimate multiplier is or how frequent you can trigger this ultimate enhanced counter, then that's where her strength can be truly evaluated, right? So that's that. And comparing to other hyper carries, Yunli will be a great help for players that are just starting out or lacking a all-rounded DPS. So now, moving forward to Jiaoqiu. He is a DOT plus D buffer. He is not a healer. I don't know why I keep saying he is not a healer. There ain't no heals, there ain't no heals. Right? Blood cannot heal. He's not a healer, right? He is quite essentially pretty much, built for Acheron, built for DOT teams. Vulnerability multipliers from talent and ultimate while dealing moderate damage himself from the burn, right? The Ashen Rose counts as a burn. Skill deals damage to 3 targets applied Ashen Rose. That's gonna be good. Ultimate, something like a Fu Xuan's Matrix of Presence, right? It's kind of cuts like a field. Dealing damage and all targets receive ultimate damage vulnerability and Ashen Rose during enemy's turn. That's pretty much all we know. Talent is gonna be Ashen Rose, vulnerability debuff, and also counts as a burn. So he looks to be a debuffer slash DOT hybrid, and Jiaoqiu will likely perform best with Acheron or DOT team comps like with Kafka and Black Swan, and with these 3 units utilizing the kits the best, although vulnerability generally can always be not too bad, right? Supplementary 4 stars, Hook, Huohuo, Arlen, and honestly, let's just be real, Huohuo is pretty much the only unit that still sees some usage of this day, and she actually have a potentially decent synergy with Jiaoqiu because, she does have her own vulnerability debuffs, and she also applies burn. But with all that being said and done, so why is Jiaoqiu ranked so low? Dan feels a little bit skeptical for Jiaoqiu. He's in a weird situation where he wants to be both a DOT applier and a debuffer, which may end up in a situation where he might not excel in both. You get what I'm saying, right? So like he's like kind of somewhat between a mix. Like he's halfway through. He has his own burn, he has his Ashen Rose, but at the same time he also wants to apply the ultimate debuff. So if you have a unit that wants to do both at the same time, you end up having a debuff that's not super strong. A classic example is if you want to try running a E0 Black Swan with Acheron, the only debuff she provides is pretty much the 20%-ish defense down from the skill, and the ultimate has a little bit of vulnerability during the enemy's turn. If you do not have an E1 Black Swan with rest down, increment in damage from Acheron is really not that great because she's kind of a mix between both a DOT and a debuffer. So if you were to go all in for a full debuff, for example like Pella or Silver, you will find yourself amplifying more damage if you were to run Acheron. So Jiaoqiu might face a similar situation. So that's for Acheron damage. So he will improve Acheron's damage output via Ashen Rose, right? Got stacks, all that, vulnerability, very, very good. Similar to basically like Huohuo. DOT teams will also benefit from this debuff on top of Kafka and Black Swan being able to interact with Ashen Rose because it does count as a DOT, right? So that's gonna be good. But all that being said, his value, it will really, really depend on, first of all, how quickly Ashen Rose is applied, because if, let's just say theoretically, if there is a limit to Ashen Rose, theoretically speaking, right, then it will severely hinder Acheron's stat gaining capabilities, which will impact her ultimate generation. So in that sense, would it be better to instead just run a full-on Pella of Silverwolf, or like a sustain with Trend of Universal Market, which technically does not have a stack limit, right? So that's going to be one theoretical situation. And how strong is the vulnerability debuff, considering we already have excellent setups currently for both Acheron and DOT. Namely, we have Silverwolf Pella, we have Dockeron, and we also have Rame/Robin buffing up our DOT units, right? He has a very, very big shoe to fill in if he wants to kind of replace any of our current setups, right? So that is going to be the overall Jiaoqiu. But like I said, right, these are all theoretical, we're just basing all the live streams. So let's just see how he's going to be performing in the live version, right? So with that being said, now let's go to, oh my goodness! Where? The return of the GOAT, our support and sustain. I'm the only motherfucker in the whole game It that doubles as a harmony with her team-wide energy regeneration and attack percentage. One of, if not the best cleansers, guys. Cleanse. I cleanse you. I cleanse your soul. I cleanse your soul with some blessings of her. Blessings of her, guys. Use code to bless of absolutely. Okay, I might be a little bit biased. Nah, I'm not biased. I'm never biased. Right. 20% energy regeneration, 40% attack for 3 teammates that has been one of the best sustained ultimate since her release. And also, if you guys have seen any of my previous Memory of Chaos clears, any of my I just realized it's a question here. If you guys have realized any of my previous Memory of Chaos, CN, MOC usage, pure vision usage, you'll notice that almost every single one of the fastest clearing teams, they are either running Huohuo exclusively as a sustain, or they mix up between either Huohuo or Aventurine, right? Before Aventurine was released, it was always Huohuo. She was consistently there for the absolute fastest clears because energy gem is just so good. Not relying on a signature icon, complete at E0, S0, usable with pretty much every single team as of version 2.4, currently best in slot with DOT, right? Also, if you are thinking of getting a Huohuo Idol, then E1 is going to have excellent value because she is now a lot more skill points positive and almost permanent 12% speed buff that happens instantly. What I mean by instantly is if you were to cast your talent and you go into battle, you will instantly apply Huohuo's talent, this 12% speed buff. So there is no drag, you know, like drag as in if you were to cast a speed buff during battle, your first few action values, it will not be with the speed buff. But with Huohuo, it is pretty much permanent. So you're always gonna get this 12% speed buff regardless of whatever it is, right? So very, very nice either one. But the overall verdict for Huohuo is honestly, you know, as much as I am, you know, I'm not shy to admit that, you know, I really like Huohuo's design. This is gonna be the verdict. If you have 0 or 1 limited sustain, you pull for her. If you have 2 or more limited sustain, you don't pull for her. It is as simple as that because I am not a biased streamer, right? As much as I love Huohuo, this is, I'm gonna keep it, but this is the situation, right? Because CM believes Huohuo, just like other sustains, the main role of a sustain, be it Huohuo, be it Aventurine, be whatever, their main role is to keep your team alive. As long as your sustain can keep your team alive, then everything else have zero purpose. They have zero purpose in terms of additional value. Although Huohuo does have 20% energy regeneration, it is very, very comfortable, especially if you want to go for a fast clear. It should not be the main reason why players are pulling for Huohuo. The main reason why a player should pull for Huohuo should ultimately always be, can your current team survive with whatever sustain you have now? Is your Luocha failing you? Is completely dog shit for some reason? Then sure, you can pull Huohuo. If you don't even have a limited sustain, you're only running like Lynx and Natasha, then sure, pull for Huohuo. But if you're at a situation where your Luocha can sustain and you have a Fu Xuan or an Aventurine, then frankly speaking, Huohuo really does not offer a lot of benefit to a player's account, right? So think about it this way. If a player wants to clear a stage faster, instead of spending, I don't know, like 70 or 80 over pulls for a Huohuo or even a Huohuo dupe, you can consider instead pulling for your DPS's Idolin, a DPS's signature icon, or even your support Idolin and support. And most of the time, these increments will give you a much better impact in terms of completely swapping out your support. For example, E0 versus E1 Runmei, E1 versus E2 Akron. Most of the time, your DPS Idolins, pulling for DPS Idolins, will increase your damage by a much higher amount instead of switching out your current sustain for another sustain. So, for example, if you want to use Luocha, you are using Luocha. If you swap out Luocha for Huohuo, you are probably not going to make an insane amount of difference, especially if Luocha is already sustaining your team. Or if you want to go for a sustainless route, right? Because, you know, Huohuo is like a pseudo support. You could always just go ahead and run a full-on no sustain route, get a Runmei, get a Sparkle, get a Tingwing, even Tingwing Pella. A full-on support, it will always give you a much higher damage increase rather compared to like Huohuo's sustain as well as heal, right? So those are the things to consider. So that's going to be that. And of course, if you are still lacking sustain, you cannot sustain your team, then Huohuo is going to be a good pull. Other than that, if you are pulling her just for the energy regeneration, just to clear a bit faster, then I urge you guys to think otherwise. So this is my very neutral, non-biased take for Huohuo. Okay, cool. All right, last unit, Sparkle, hyper carry support. Now, Sparkle has seen excellent usage as with I'm not sure you guys have seen that. Every single time where we were to talk about the, you know, usage rate, the support units in Honkai Starbucks have consistently been in S rank and above. They are always the most absolute highest used units because they serve as the keystones, the foundations, the benchmark of our team building, right? Almost every single sustain, limited sustain, Robin, Sparkle, Rame, they have been used so much. For Sparkle specifically, you can see her in excellent usages for hypercare team comps, such as Imbibitor Lune, such as Scylla, such as E2 Aircron, right? Excellent synergy duo, making him arguably a tier 0 DPS, second only to Aircron. Excellent synergy, especially if you do have a E2 Imbibitor Lune, then oh my god, almost every single hyper carry can make use of the additional action value and the skill point provided. Also, is very flexible, not reliant on signature icon. She is a excellent user of Zan. Shout out to 175 speed Sparkle, absolutely insane. And you can lead to very fast clears in the endgame content even without the signature icon. Very good. E2 Sparkle leads to a very nice setup because she does have 24% defense down for a close to 100% defense down with units like Silver Wolf, Peta, and E1 Rame. And finally, E6 Sparkle. For any of my Giga Wheels that are considering pulling for E6 Sparkle, it is technically arguably stronger than E6 Rame because you don't have to rely on your unit being on element. E6 Rame, it only works when the enemy's weakness broken, so you can technically like brute force a lot more stuff with E6 Sparkle. Not to mention she buffs the entire team, so you could kind of want to use her with like a dual DPS setup, right? So something food for consideration. And now the overall verdict is gonna be this: hyper carry mains 9 out of 10. If you're gonna be a follow-up DOT break team, it's gonna be a 1 out of 10. Also very contrasting viewpoint, very contrasting. So the reason why I say this is because and why is the 9 out of 10 and not even a 10 out of 10 hyper carry mains is this, right? While Sparkle is an excellent support for hyper carries, DN feels that the reliance on hypercarry itself has kind of waned over the past few patches. I'm not sure if you guys noticed. Before version 2, it has always been hypercarries. It has always been 3+1, 2+1. It has always been hypercarries. Dual DPS and DOT, they were just pretty much not that strong yet. But now with the rise of follow-up team comps, with the rise of Robin, with the rise of Rame into Super Break, with the rise of all these really crazy ass units, hypercarry as a team comp itself, it is no longer as dominant as it once used to be, right? It is what it is, you know. Never let. And Aircron herself, she can really only utilize Sparkle very well if you have a E2 Aircron or if you're running her with a sustainless team comp, right? So since because there's a lot more options, Sparkle and hyper carry's relevance is not going to be as dominant, and as such, there is a less impact on the player's account if they choose to not pull for Sparkle. If a player today, I want to play hyper carry, but I don't have Sparkle. You have follow-up, you have DOT, you have Super Break. And a lot of these teams nowadays, they are very cheap to race, especially Super Break. I feel like Super Break is the best team that any free-to-plays should be putting. If you did not pull for Rame, fuck my life, right? So it is what it is. That is gonna be the overall verdict for Sparkle. So in summary, flexible DPS, Yunli needs sustain Huohuo, and hypercarry is gonna be a Sparkle. Potential weakness, Yunli, right? She may not have the best in slot team comp setup currently, because if you were to reference her in tandem with Clara, we are probably waiting for a better, stronger 5-star supports to work with Yunli, because we don't really have a lot of supports that can function very well with this counter mechanic, right? So if in the future we get some sort of supports that can synergize better with counter, then her value can only go up. For now, might not be in the final form yet, so that's gonna be that. Jiaoqiu, as mentioned previously, depending on his multipliers and his mechanics and how this works, he may end up performing quite poorly in both DOT and DY Replicator when he attempts to do both. Not to say that he is like completely dogshit, unusable. He is most likely still gonna be maybe a slight upgrade compared to if you're using units like Gwen Iphone. Alright, he might still be a decent slight upgrade, but is this upgrade gonna be worth your Stellar Jades? Because this is gonna cost you on average 100 pulls, assuming that half the players won the DVDs and half the players didn't win. It's gonna cost you roughly 100 pulls. So is this unit gonna be worth it? We will wait and see whether it's going to perform in the actual live version of the game, right? So in conclusion, version 2.4, nothing too crazy in the overall impact to the meta in Honkai Star Wars, and I'll be looking forward to see the actual results from these new units after we have units like nuclear units like Acheron and Firefly, right? So with that, we have come to the end of today's content. Want to engage in further discussion, leave the comments down below, join the Discord, discord.gg for the Pokke really we're very active commenting on Honkai the latest on channel, twitch.tv for the so that's all for today. All the best for your 2.4 pools if you're pulling, and I'll see you guys next time.